game is over, and now it's time to break down another showdown for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes.
Sean Parker comes in the running back position. Going to throw it to him out in the flat. He's all alone down the sideline. Sean Parker is gone. 52-yard catch and run, and they forgot all about Parker out of the backfield. And just like that, the Utes are on the board. Here comes a blitz up the middle. It's picked up and picked off. Jackson Binney going the other way with the pick six. Grigsby rolls out, and it's batted around and right into the hands of the defender, Jonathan Hall. And he's down inside the 1 yard line. Under pressure, Dampier angles, caught. Did he get a foot down? He did. Touchdown. That's Dallin Bentley, the tight end. Ficklin, who hands it off and breaking free. Parker having himself quite a day. 43-yard touchdown run. Taking himself. Ficklin, one more man to beat. Makes a move. And there goes the freshman with his first collegiate touchdown. 38-yard run for the Okie from Muskogee. Comes in motion. Ficklin will keep it himself, and he will hop into the end zone. Second touchdown for the true freshman, Bird Ficklin.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome to the Ute Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles joining me. Big win for the Utes, Alex. 63-9 over Cal Poly. The Utes are now 2-0 on the season. Initial thoughts and takeaways from this, I guess you can say, butt kicking.
I think it's a great follow-up, right? After what we saw against UCLA, it's a great way to follow up your performance on the road at the Rose Bowl. Now in front of your home crowd, you're able to run it up a little bit on Cal Poly. You're able to see some of the second stringers and some of the, your number twos come in and also put up a good performance, and a lot of positives for Utah on this one. But I also think there's a couple of negatives that you need to clean up here and there, and I'm sure we'll get into it. And I'm referring to the penalties that could probably be cleaned up for Utah. But overall, a very, very, very good performance for the Utes.
Clean win for Utah. Clean win. I mean, looking at the final score, 63-9 is very impressive. Obviously, the 43-10 win over UCLA last week started the season off, and there was a lot of excitement after that win, right? And, people were wondering how they're going to follow that up against a Big Sky school in week 2. And obviously, it's a good statement win, I think. And looking at the game in particular, I want to start on the offensive side. I want to start with Devin Dampier because he looked so great in week 1. Week 2, I think there were some blemishes that kind of started to show through a little bit. Some areas I guess that you could say that he could improve upon. And we knew he wasn't a perfect player, right? We knew that his passing had some room to grow. And I think that was my initial takeaway from Devin Dampier. But looking at the final stats of the day, I mean, he finished with, 17 out of 23 for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, that is incredible. That is a great stat line to finish with.
It's a great stat line to finish with, but you bring up a good point. There was sometimes in the passing game, particularly where Devin Dampier seemed a little bit off, but I think that'll just come with time, right? There was questions coming into the season if he can improve on the passing game and his passing numbers from what we saw that he had in New Mexico. And I still think, you're week 2. There's still time to work on it and to really polish it off. But there was moments where Devin Dampier looked really, really well in the passing game, and the 17 for 23, it's a pretty good completion percentage.
I'm smirking because we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook, we're live on KSL Sports account on Twitter. PNW Ute says 43 last week, 63 this week. Do I hear 83 next week? Increasing the total by 20 every week. I love it. That would be awesome. I think Jason Beck was really in his bag today, and we'll get into that. But going back to Dampier, of course, nearly 200 yards to the air. He also added 4 carries for 25 yards on the ground. I think there were a lot of throws where the placement was a little off, right? But then there were a couple throws like that touchdown to the tight end in the quarter of the end zone. Like throws like that, it calms me down a little bit. It's like, okay, I'm not quite as worried because you know that he has the skill to get the placement. It's just finding the consistency there.
Right. And like I said, I think that will improve, and that will come more with time. As we continue to see Devin Dampier settle in with this offense and settle in with guys like Tobias Merriweather, settle in with guys like Smith Snowden, who again had a big role on the offense. And it's just I think it's just, coming out and building some of that chemistry with your guys. For week 2, I think overall, though, the passing game is looking really, really well for Utah. And it's a great way to build off what was a successful passing game last week against UCLA.
Yeah, I liked some of the concepts they did. Obviously, they got it started with it was technically a passing play, but the swing route to Wayshawn Parker for the 52-yard touchdown, basically right off the bat. It was funny in our pregame show this morning, we were talking about our keys to the game, and you brought up chunk plays because we didn't see that last week. And your first score of the game is on a nice long swing pass. The running back does most of the work, and he really didn't have to do anything besides just run fast, right? Great blocking downfield. It was a really good play call. Initially on that drive, there was a blitz play where Dampier got hit as he threw the ball because it was a blindside blitz, right? He didn't see the nickel, and he got hit in the back. And funny enough, that touchdown actually came on the same blitz play by the defense. They blitzed a player from the same spot, but that is where the running back ran his swing into, and Parker just had to catch the ball and outrun the defense. So nice to see a chunk play there. We also saw a longer run later on in the game, and longer plays today versus Cal Poly than we saw last week versus UCLA. And I think that obviously for an offense to be a true contender like the Utes want to do, they're going to need to be able to hit those big plays consistently. And I think that we saw the ability today.
We did see that ability today. And I think, the thing that pops out the most to me when it comes to the rushing game is obviously that 43-yard run from Wayshawn Parker in the third quarter, where he takes it for 43 yards to the house, scores the touchdown, gets on the score sheet, adds another touchdown to his tally. And again, it's really exciting to see the 1-2 punch with Wayshawn Parker and Nakari Rogers. Nakari Rogers, who in this one had 2 rushing touchdowns, both set up nicely by that Jonathan Hall INT. Oh my gosh. Well, we'll dive into that on the defensive segment, but again, just continuing to pile on what was already a great rushing attack last week. What was the final tally on the yards here, Christian? 273, not close to the 435 that you wanted in when we were talking earlier, but still 273 yards on the ground. It's pretty dang impressive for Utah.
Yeah, and lots of people starting to join the stream right now as we are live breaking down Utah's big win, 63-9 over Cal Poly. I'm sure there are a lot of people leaving the stadium, so that's awesome. It looked great environment from Rice Eccles on the broadcast. Obviously, I was watching from home. You were as well, but it felt like everybody after last week's game, and I keep bringing up UCLA because the feeling was for Utah, like Utah is back, right? And that definitely showed up. The Zone had a big tailgate party today. We had a tent set up there. We were giving away donuts. There was nowhere to park. There were so many people walking around, and the vibe around Salt Lake City today for the Utah Utes to get ready for this game was crazy. And it showed up. Fans were amazing. Fans were loud, and I'm sure that it was an exciting game to be at.
Yeah, I was up there pregame. I was up there at the tent with some of our team, and if you felt it in the walking around that tailgate lot, walking around and seeing the people interacting with some of the people up there, you definitely felt a different vibe when it comes to Utah football. And I think, a lot of that has to do with the success that we're seeing Utah have on offense this season. I don't think last year at any point we thought that this Utah offense, maybe in that SU game, but I don't think at any point we thought that this offense was going to be able to score 63 points.
No.
Now with a revamped offense, Devin Dampier at the helm at quarterback, it's a reality, and it's great to see them. It's great to see high scoring games from Utah again, because I think the Utah fans desperately needed it this season.
Yeah, that was something that it felt like it was such a pipe dream after last season, right? But it was great. And I want to continue to talk about, I mean, there's a lot to build off of from last week, what we saw. Devin Dampier was dynamic, as always, doing it through the air and on the ground. We continued to see more of Smith Snowden today on offense. He didn't play nearly as much as it felt like he did last week. He had 3 catches for -2 yards, and then he finished with 2 carries for 15 yards. So last week he touched the ball around 10 times. But of course, against this Cal Poly team, you're not needing your star players to really carry the load. And that allows you to see a lot more of Hunter Andrews and Nate Johnson, which I think was good to see. And from early on, I mean, Hunter Andrews had, I think, 4 touches in the first quarter alone, and he continued. We saw him line up all over. We saw him line up as a running back. We saw him line up in the slot. We saw him line up in the Wildcat. So it definitely feels like not just Smith Snowden, not just Nate Johnson, but then you throw Hunter Andrews into the mix. They have a lot of guys on this Utah offense that feel very positionless and very versatile in the ways that they can be used.
I think that's the best way to describe it. It's you have guys not only who are playing both ways and both sides of the ball, but guys who can come in and you can line them up anywhere, and you can and design plays and build packages specifically for them to tailor them to their strengths, and make plays with their strengths. Hunter Andrews, right? He had 3 receiving, 19 yards on the day, but he also had 5 carries and 21 yards on the ground rushing. And then you have, like you mentioned, Nate Johnson. I thought Nate Johnson came in and brought a really nice spark. Didn't really necessarily see him utilized a lot in the UCLA game last week, but Nate Johnson coming in, being the guy with the most carries in this one, 11 carries, 59 yards, a lot of those coming in the fourth quarter, but still Nate Johnson did a phenomenal job of moving the ball, coming in and just adding that extra dynamic to Utah's offense, right? Whether it was the end arounds, whether it was just a straight run, the fake handoffs too for Nate Johnson. I thought he impressed me tonight.
Yeah, and I know he was wanting that touchdown. He got brought down on like the 1 or 2 yard run. He had a really nice juke behind that block, and he got close to scoring there. But it's a cool story, man. You got a guy with Nate who he was thrown into crazy circumstances, asked to play quarterback in a dreadful season for the Utes 2 years ago. And after that experience, he decides to transfer out and go try somewhere else. And after that, he does find himself back in Utah, and they are using him in a way that allows him to create offensively and be, I guess, a dynamo in the sense that you never really know what he's going to bring you. If he's in the backfield, he can run a route just as easily as he can take a handoff, or he can be a decoy for somebody else to get the ball. So I think he's a fun little toy, I guess, is the best way that I would put it for Jason Beck. And let me put it this way too. Seems like Jason Beck has a lot of fun little toys in this Utah offense.
Oh, absolutely. The versatility you see from some of these guys. There's a couple guys on the roster that you specifically look at, and I mean, they're just listed as athletes because that's what they are. They are athletes, so they're going to come in and they're going to come in and they're going to be used in different ways. And off defenses can try to scheme the best that they can, but Jason Beck looks like he has some tricks up his sleeve in ways that these guys can come in and make plays. Smith Snowden, we saw a lot last week, but now you add the element of Nate Johnson. Now you have add the element of Hunter Andrews. There's multiple guys on this roster who are just athletes who can come in and make big plays. And that's going to be, I think, something you're going to see consistently all season long. We had this conversation a little bit in the morning too, where if we were going to continue to see Smith Snowden use at the rate that he was on offense, I didn't think in this one it was going to be necessary. I didn't think we were going to, and I thought Smith Snowden was going to take more of a backseat on the offense, but no, it continued. It felt like he had almost the same amount he was utilized just as much on offense as he was last week.
He was on the field as much. Yeah, he didn't get the ball quite as much, but he definitely he's out there, and they make a point to bring him up on the broadcast, and love our friends at ESPN Plus, but I'm hoping we don't have too many more ESPN Plus broadcasts to watch.
Yeah, I loved defensive lineman Lander Barton multiple times in this
My
broadcast.
favorite was defensive end John Daly Henry.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, but I mean, it's whatever. I mean, they're not familiar with the team, and I think that speaks to this Utah team kind of fell off the map a little bit over the past 2 years, right? But it definitely seems like they have what it takes to establish themselves as a program to be taken seriously again. And a lot of people nationally are going to learn these names. And there's a lot of guys to take note of. And we're talking about the offense mainly right now, but defensively, we can get into that in a little bit later too. But overall, I mean, it's a good, clean win for the Utes. It wasn't perfect. There was, we got to talk penalties, because you had 6 penalties for 50 yards just at the half. And there were there's a lot that could have been avoided, right? And I think, it's one thing if it's like a conference opponent and it's a big game and the stakes are high, and it's like, there's penalties that come up in those type of games that kind of make sense. But when you're playing against a Cal Poly team, there's really no excuse for some of these penalties. Let's see, Utah finished 7 accepted penalties for 65 yards was the final number. So a little better in the second half than in the first. And I'm sure Coach Whittingham got after them, right? But we got to see a lot of cleanup on those penalties.
Yeah, that's something I think you have to clean up, because you don't have the luxury of being able to kind of take those penalties once you get into Big 12 play. I think this is also a little bit of a conversation we had earlier this morning, but these are the type of games where you can go out and you can make those mistakes, right? As long as you learn from those mistakes and you go and you clean up those mistakes, right? I thought Utah was at times a little bit sloppy on offense, really, in that first half, specifically in that first quarter, and probably even the early parts of the second quarter, where Utah was getting these penalties and kind of stalling out their own drives due to their own accord, right? There was missed passes. It just felt a little bit disconnected in that first half. I mean, you're still up 21-6, right? That it's not something that too worrisome, not something that I think raises too much of a red flag, but it is something that I think Coach Whittingham and that coaching staff will be after them this week. You have to clean up those penalties, and you have to clean up. You can't be that sloppy when it comes to, not to get too far ahead, but when it comes to that opening game against Texas Tech at Rice-Eccles Stadium, those are penalties and those are plays that you're not going to be able to afford. So it's good to get them out here against Cal Poly, and hope for a little bit less penalties and a little bit more clean on the being a little bit more clean on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to that game in Laramie and of course against Texas Tech.
What do you think it was? Do you think it was maybe not getting out of bed for these guys, or maybe taking them a little too lightly, because you look at last week's game and Whittingham had a quote specifically where he said, our guys have been looking forward to this game since January because it was against UCLA and that was big.
Yep. And
then you have that big game and it's like, okay, now we can take it easy for week 2 and a little bit for week 3 before we ramp up for Big 12 play. And that kind of, I feel like that can catch you a little bit. If you got to wake up and prepare for your opponent, you got to be ready to go out there and play your game every single Saturday, right? So I wonder if that was maybe part of it.
It definitely felt, a little bit like it, right? You kind of got the vibe a bit of it, because it's something we kind of hit on in the morning too, right? You play against UCLA, it's a Big Ten opponent, it's a Power 4 opponent. And then you kind of transition and you now have to play an FCS opponent. And it's weird to go from that one week to FCS the next. And so maybe there is a little bit of a vibe there that maybe they didn't really get up as much as they did for the UCLA last week, especially in the early goings of this game. But still, I think, you come out with that Jonathan Hall crazy INT, you set yourself up on the 1 yard line, you score there, and then literally within 2 minutes, you score another one. And then that kind of gives you an extra boost, and I think almost ultimately puts this game to bed.
Yeah, you're up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter, right? And then you score again, so you're up 21-3, and then you have to punt the ball away. And Cal Poly kicked the field goal, so it was 21-6, and it's like, okay, what happens here? And, are you going to get a team that kind of responds to that, or a team that continues to kind of snowball effect and let mistakes pile up? And Utah actually had to punt the ball away again. And you're right, that crazy Jonnu Hall interception, catching it off of the quarterback's pads. Another play where, man, he got brought down on the 1 yard line, and it's like, oh, just get in there. But luckily they punch it in with Rodgers. But anyways, getting the score there, and then, as you mentioned, getting another score shortly after that. Now you're talking 35-6 at half instead of 21-6. And that is a huge difference. And I think getting those scores back to back, I think that kind of is what made Utah find their confidence again and made them realize, okay, we're the better team in every phase. We're bigger, faster, stronger. We're better, right? We're Utah, they're Cal Poly, and we can dominate. And I think that's what we saw from then on. We saw sort of a mentality shift after that. That's just what it felt like to me. But
it absolutely did. As soon as you get that INT right at the 1 yard line, and you set yourself up for a big run, for Nakai Rodgers to just punch it in. That's a huge swing play, right? The offense for Cal Poly is back on the field. They have a chance here to potentially march it down and potentially get some points on the board and keep this one close. But instead, you come away with a big takeaway. You set yourself up nicely on the 1 yard line. You punch it in for the score, and it's the momentum just completely swings in a different direction. And you felt it, right? I felt like Utah and that offense were a little bit more fired up once kind of that sequence went up.
Yeah. Looking at the offense and some more things they need to clean up. I know we hit penalties too. Another thing that I want to see Devin Dampier do more, I want to see him be more comfortable throwing the ball away. Rather than taking a sack. There was one play specifically that I'm thinking of where nobody was open downfield, and the line initially was blocking really well, and Dampier escapes the pocket, and of course he wants to try and get upfield and pick up yardage, but nothing opens up, and he just runs towards the boundary line and then gets tackled ultimately for a loss. And it's like, in that scenario, when you're out of the pocket, throw it away. And mistakes like that aren't going to lose you games in week 2 and week 3. But once you start playing, down the line, and you see Texas Tech in a couple weeks, or, you're playing Arizona State or whoever, like, you need to minimize any negative play that you can. And the plays where you're taking essentially a sack, you can't do that, because sacks are drive killers. And when you now are looking at a 2nd and 12 or a 3rd and 9 because you're 2nd and short, and then you lose yards, like, those are things that you can, it's like a penalty, right? It's almost like a mental error that you can clean up, and that's on you. That's not necessarily on the defense, right? The defense maybe played well and covered well and covered your receivers well, but you still have the option to throw it away for a net, no loss.
Right. And like you mentioned, I think ultimately that's just going to be better than taking the sack and putting yourself behind the sticks. I think that there is confidence in this Utah team that if they are behind the sticks in those situations, that they would be able to get a first down. But still, I think it's just better to not even have to put yourself in that situation, right? Have the awareness to get rid of it just a little bit sooner, and live to see another down, because, in this one, maybe it's a 2-3 yard loss, but down the line, maybe a 2 to 3 yard loss can turn into something even more significant, right? Yeah. Maybe a big 10 yard loss, and then you're really behind the sticks and you're really behind the plays. And then, so have that awareness to just get rid of it a little bit sooner. But you're right, Christian. There was a couple of plays where I thought that maybe Devin Dampier could have done a little bit of a better job throwing it away, and suddenly he took the sack. But in this game, again, this is the type of games where you are allowed to make those kind of mistakes, as long as you, of course, learn from them.
That's what these early games are for. Speaking of learning, right? And we even heard the broadcast talk about it last week against UCLA when Dampier took off. There were a couple of plays where he took a big hit, right? Yep. And what we see today, we saw him get out of bounds. So that's a positive, and it's just a matter of learning from, I guess, mistakes. I don't know if I would categorize those as mistakes, but things you can do better week to week. And that's what builds you towards a championship team, is constantly improving. And I feel like ultimately, there were areas where Dampier, I think, could have looked better today, but then there were other areas where he continued to build upon what he showed last week. And not just Dampier, but the offense. I think it was a more well-rounded rushing attack. And when I say well-rounded, it's because they had a lot more players get a carry, right? Last week,
Yes.
you saw it was Dampier, Parker, and Rogers who all had double-digit carries. Today, Nate Johnson had 11 carries, and then you had Ficklin with 5, Parker with 6, Rogers with 7, Dampier with 4, Andrews with 5, Snowden had 2, and then a couple other players picking up a carry or 2 as well. So you have multiple players that are able to run the football, and I think that's what Jason Beck wants, because that's what's going to carry this offense.
And before we move on from the offense conversation, I think we need to have a conversation about Bert Ficklin, who came in and I thought looked absolutely fantastic as a true freshman, coming in and doing some great things in that second half. Specifically, of course, the big touchdown run, 38-yard touchdown run for Bert Ficklin on that for his first collegiate touchdown, taking down a couple of guys with him on the way there.
Dude, that stiff arm was crazy.
That stiff arm was
came out of nowhere.
As a true freshman quarterback, you absolutely love to see that. I thought Bert Ficklin looked really, really well. We talked about it a little bit in the morning. He has a similar skill set to Devin Dampier. I think he showed it off tonight, and he looked really good doing it.
It makes you wonder, right, what the deal is with Isaac Wilson, because Coach Whittingham announced during camp that Isaac Wilson was the backup quarterback. Now, he did make it pretty clear that they saw it as a 2A and 2B situation, right?
Yeah, John Beck came out later. I think it was after that Whittingham quote. John Beck was asked about it. John Beck came back and said it was more of a 2A, 2B situation.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's been mostly just a 2 situation, because you saw Bert Ficklin come in garbage time against UCLA. Now you see him once Devin Dampier was pulled, he took over that offense, but again, looked well doing it.
It was basically a quarter and a half today, right? The Dampier only played, I think, 2 drives into that second quarter. And then ultimately, you're right, we saw Ficklin, and we haven't seen Wilson yet in these 2 games. And to repeat a theory that I said before, like, it almost makes you wonder if maybe they're letting Ficklin, the younger player, get some action in the non-conference games, but they feel comfortable with Isaac Wilson if they need to go with him during the conference slate. But that way, in their mind, they're thinking, let's let Ficklin play a couple games during non-con and then preserve his redshirt year, right? So,
right. I think that's the most important thing for both of them. Is you have to balance that, because I think it's going to be very crucial for both of them to reserve a redshirt year, especially in the case, if Devin Dampier can play the entire season, stay healthy the entire season, and play every single game, and start every single game. You want to reserve those red shirts for both of those guys as much as you possibly can. We've seen Bert Ficklin twice. He has technically 2 games left for that red shirt, and then of course Isaac Wilson, haven't seen him yet, so he'll still have the 4.
I'm sure there are a lot of people listening that are like, why are they not talking about defense? Why are they not talking about defense? Like, we're going to get to it. And I can't wait to talk about it, because Utah continued their streak. What was it? 22nd consecutive season with a pick 6. And, Jackson Benny looked amazing. He was all over the field. He had the pick 6 as well as several pass breakups throughout the game. So that was awesome. And then we brought up John Hall's interception that set up a nice touchdown. And then John Henry Daly continues to be a game wrecker. So we're going to talk about the defense in our next segment. We do have to take a break, though, because we're live on the radio as well. Not just YouTube, not just X, not just Facebook. This is being streamed on the radio. So we're going to take a quick radio break. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. So stick with us. It's the Ute Postgame Show, brought to you by KSL Sports.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
My mic was muted. Still working out some kinks with this thing. We are live on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, on KSLSports.com, on 97.5 FM, breaking down Utah's win over Cal Poly. We spent last segment, Alex, talking about the offense. We got to talk about the defense, though, because I think there are a few very special players that showed up today. And one of those, I guess, we'll start with where they started, I guess. Jackson Benny. I think he was probably my player of the game if we had to
I was just
pick
about
one. Starting off the scoring for Utah, he got the pick six, and then he had some pass breakups. Or excuse me, he didn't start the scoring. He had the Parker had the first touchdown, and then Benny had the pick six, but he continued the 22-year-long streak.
Yes,
to getting a pick six every year.
And last year, for everything that last year was, I think there was, heading into the Iowa State game, there was some concerns that maybe, whether or not Utah was going to be able to pull it off, and whether the streak was going to stay alive. I think to the much happiness and glory of what last season was, I think a lot of Utes fans were happy that they were able to continue the streak. This year, you don't have to wait as long for it, because you get it in week 2. Jackson Benny was absolutely phenomenal. 22 straight seasons with the pick six. That's an NCAA record, Mike.
That's crazy. And you almost had 2 tonight.
Yeah, Jackson Benny, man. Jackson Benny almost had he had a couple of really good pass breakups, man. But I think if he was I can't even remember. Was it in the second quarter? He had a really close play where if he was maybe just a second quicker, he probably would have had another pick six.
And what I liked most about Benny is he was making plays all over the field. He wasn't just a high safety or a low safety for that matter. I mean, we saw that pick six. It came, he was down more in the box, and he was playing the flat, and then a majority of those big pass breakups and one of his near interceptions, he was playing high safety one-on-one with the receiver. So very, very versatile defender, and a guy that, I didn't really hear a ton about before the season, but he showed up last week, and he even took some snaps on offense last week. And that was really the first that it was like, okay, look out for this guy. He's going to be a player. And then today he just really, really made an impact on this game. Like I think by far was Utah's best player on defense today, which says a lot because Utah had a lot of players do really great things. But Utah record is 4 pass breakups in one game, and I think Benny finished with 3. So he was right there. But 3 pass breakups and a pick six that's great.
Obviously, you start with the pick six, and I think being able to take one to the house early in the game, being able to pick it off, and one, I mean, the play recognition from Benny to just be in the right place at the right time. The Cal Poly quarterback essentially just threw it at him. It wasn't, it wasn't necessarily like he had to make an extreme play or an extreme catch on it. It was right in his breadbasket. Makes the right play, obviously picks it off, and that's just going to grow your confidence an insane amount for the rest of the game. And I think that's the fruit of the labor of what we saw from Jackson Benny for the rest of the game is the fact that early on he was able to take one back to the house, and then the rest of the game, man, he was everywhere. He was in just about every play that came up with a big pass breakup. Jackson Benny was right there to make the play. And so when you start off the game as great as he did, it's amazing to see a young guy, a sophomore, be able to, come out and continue to just continue to build off that confidence that you grow from having that pick six.
One thing I like too is that he wasn't just playing one quarterback, right? He picked off Diffenbach and took that one to the house, and then Cal Poly put Grigsby in, and Benny was able to continue to make plays. So it was just a matter of this dude being ready to go for this game, this dude knowing what to expect. And from all of the quarterbacks, not just the guy who they started, not just the guy who replaced the starter, and even, they put a third guy in there, and Utah's defense was able to shut him down essentially. And that all started with Benny. So great job by him. Also got to talk about John Henry Daly. After that first game last week against UCLA, there were some comps made to Jonah Ellis, and sort of the out of nowhere performance we saw from him that turned him into a 3rd round draft pick. So
yeah,
he's on watch, man. He was an absolute game wrecker. We saw him. He had a sack today. So two games in a row with a sack, but he was also making plays in the backfield all night and literally running over the offensive tackle. It's like a traffic cone, right? Like he was putting in work, and I think he's going to be a guy that's talked about nationally. If he's not already, give it a couple weeks and people are going to be like, oh, there's a dog over in Salt Lake City.
I think people here locally are already recognizing that John Henry Daly is a dog, but sooner or later that national recognition will come, because he has been probably obviously this game, our player of the game, Jackson Benny, but over the course of the 2 games, right, including the UCLA game last week, John Henry Daly has been probably my pick as the best defensive player. He had overall, overall last week, he had the 2 sacks, continues a sack performance in this one, right? He picks up 1, also had 2.5 or 2.5 TFLs.
Yeah, that's big. That is huge, actually. That's because we, talking about the Utah offense, we talked about Dampier getting tackled in the backfield when he can throw it away, and how big of a drive killer it is to get tackled in the backfield, whether it's a sack or a tackle for loss. So when you've got a guy,
and how many times did we see Cal Poly's drives just come to a complete halt because of guys like John Henry Daly able to get into the backfield quickly and bring him down, whether it was a TFL, which Utah had 9 of tonight, or a sack, which Utes finished with 3. So
yeah, and that's what it does. It totally just flips the script, and you can be an offensive coordinator with an exact plan of what you want to do on this drive. But if you've got game wreckers on the other end who literally make it impossible for you to do what you want like that, you freeze as an OC. Yeah. You freeze as a quarterback, you freeze as an offense as a whole, because you just can't move the ball when you've got John Henry Daly on one side and Logan Fano on the other. Like, it is absolutely, it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, this could be a very special group, because they are simply just all over, at least over these first 2 games. And I hope that's something that continues as we get into conference play here in 2 weeks.
Speaking of which, though, one of the guys missing tonight on that Utah defense was Logan Fano. Yeah. Questions for me, coming out on Logan Fano. I thought Cash Dillon came in and did a phenomenal job stepping in for him, but obviously Logan Fano, we talked about him last week, right? He's the heart and soul of that Utah D line, and so not having him out there is a big miss. We'll hear from Whittingham here hopefully momentarily, but Whittingham did say that Fano was held out mostly for precautionary reasons. Mm-hmm. So it bodes well, but at the same time, it's a big miss.
Missing Fano, yeah. And yes. It was good to see Cash Dillon come in and get his first sack of the season. And we know that is a very deep group. We've heard the coaching staff talk about it all throughout camp. And obviously the 2 guys at the top are going to hear their names called a lot, but then it really makes you feel good about this group, about the depth of this group. And you've got Cash Dillon coming in and making plays. And then even the unit behind them, and I mean behind them on the field, the linebackers, continuing to make special plays. Lander Barton, I think, although he didn't register any wow plays, he's still a guy that is, when you watch the game, he is all over the field. He is all over the defense.
Right.
There was one play in particular where he blitzed and he ran over the center. And although he didn't make the tackle, because he caused so much disruption from literally running over the center, some other players were able to make the stop in the defensive backfield. So we saw how good the Utah defense was last year, but
Yep.
because the offense couldn't really do anything, it really flew under the radar, and that's not going to happen this year.
No. And I think there's a lot of positives and a lot of really good things to take away defensively from this one from Utah. But I do think that there's also a couple negatives, right? There was a couple pass interferences that, again, this is the type of game where you want to make those, where you want to have those, right? You can afford a couple of pass interference calls. You can afford a couple of penalties on defense as well. Again, just clean them up, learn from those mistakes, and clean it up in the next game against Wyoming. There was a couple plays too where I thought Cal Poly got a couple of easy receptions, and a couple of big. There was a one particularly in the first half. I think it was an 18-yard pass to their number 8 receiver, and he was all by himself, and that's just something that, again, through coverage and through weeks of just watching film and learning from that, I think it's something you can clean up. But there's a few negatives here and there on the defensive side, but it's mostly positives. Obviously, holding them to 9 is fantastic. You didn't allow a touchdown, 3 field goals overall. I think it's all great things right now from Utah's defense.
I will say there were I'm thinking of at least 2. There might have been 3 plays where whether it was Grigsby or Diffenbach missed a wide open receiver for what could have been a touchdown. So I think Utah's defense kind of got bailed out there by bad throws. They were overthrown. But there were a few plays where it seemed like the DBs kind of got beat, and that's hard. It's hard to ask your guys to go out there and play one-on-one with basically no safety help. And that has been a staple of this Utah defense. And that's what has seen guys get drafted year in and year out. But that's one of the hardest things to do in football is to play corner, to play man coverage one-on-one. So when you do that as much as Utah does, you're going to have guys get beat. It's just a matter of needing to limit that and not give up the big plays. So when you're looking at the penalties, when you're looking at the pass interference, obviously you take a 15-yard pass interference over giving up a 60-yard touchdown. But you'd rather have neither, right? You'd rather not have to worry about it at all. So as
clean as a game as you can get for Utah, I think that's best case scenario, right?
That's one thing I'm going to keep my eye on the next couple of weeks is how do the corners hold up? Are they going to continue to kind of get beat and have some penalties? We didn't really see that a ton last week, but I don't know. It was a bit of a red flag today.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you got to give a little bit of credit to Cal Poly. I thought once Anthony Grigsby came into the game, they looked a little bit better through the air. And they were completing a little bit better, moving the ball down a little bit better too. But I think once Utah kind of adjusted to Grigsby, then we kind of saw it turn back into what we know this Utah defense is and what we know this Utah defense can be. But give the credit to Grigsby because I thought he came in and did a good job.
He did do a good job. And I think it was clear when they made the change, like there was a clear spark on Cal Poly's offense. And that's what's going to happen when you've got a team that's struggling and, you need to find a way to ignite a spark on the team. A quarterback change is normally what does it. And Grigsby was clearly a very different player. And there was the one play where he rolled out and he was like this, like threatening to throw it the whole time, like as he was sprinting forward. And it's like, just go up and get him. He's not going to throw it.
Right.
But, no, you're right. The dynamic that he brought, I think, although ultimately they still lost 63-9, I thought that was a little encouraging on their end. Right.
Right.
But overall, I mean, Utah took care of business.
They took care of business. And this is exactly what you saw tonight for Utah is exactly what you want to see from Utah when it comes to taking on an FCS opponent. Again, looked really great on offense, did a lot of really great things on defense. Just again, clean up the little bit of sloppiness that we saw early in this game, in that first quarter and in the early goings of that second quarter, right? Clean up the sloppiness, and I think Utah's set up in a perfect spot to continue building off of this, man. It's a big win at home. Now you have to head over on the road to Laramie. And
it's going to be an interesting game.
It is going to be an interesting game, but at the end of the day, you want to head into conference play at 3-0 and get ready for Texas Tech.
Yeah, because, they started off really well last year going into conference play, but it feels different, right? Obviously, health-wise, we didn't see Fano today, but as you said earlier, and Whittingham has said, it was mostly precautionary, right? So, You hope to continue to have good injury luck, knock on wood. I think Utah deserves it after what they've gone through the last 2 years. So
Right.
Looking good on that end. But speaking of Coach Witt, let's get to him. We have the audio from his post-game presser. So let's hear what Coach Whittingham had to say after the 63-9 victory over Cal Poly.
Took care of business today. Proud of our guys for doing what we should have done. You don't always do what you should do. And they controlled the game really from start to finish. A lot of guys made good contributions. Got to take a look at a lot of guys in that second half. Weren't quite as in sync offensively as we were in the game last week. We never got into that rhythm that we were in last week consistently, but there were some really bright spots and good things that happened. Defense kept them out of the end zone. Obviously scored a bunch of points, made a bunch of first downs, didn't turn the ball over one time again for the second consecutive week. Scored on defense, set up another score on defense. Rayshon got loose on a punt return. That was great to see to get one of those underway. Actually had another pretty good one, but the one was outstanding. I thought Devin played well. Completion percentage again was way up, which is where it needs to be. Touchdown, no interceptions that we said. Thought Bird Ficklen looked really good when he came in. He's an athlete. He's cool under pressure, and true freshman. Just right out of high school, and I thought he handled his opportunity really well. Ran the ball well. Almost 300 yards rushing again. A couple linemen got a little dinged up, but and we held Kump out today, precautionary reasons, as well as Logan Fano, and so there were some guys that and Rabbit's still not quite ready, but hopefully we get all those guys back for this week. We'll see what happens, but overall solid performance, and like I said, we took care of the business that we needed to take care of. So questions.
Kyle, for the defense to only allow one touchdown total in the first two games, are they kind of living up to what your expectations were going to be so far this early in the year?
Yeah, so far. I mean, there's things we need to get better at. They hit that glance route on us 3 or 4 times. Got to not let people inside. I mean, there's things to work on, but you're right. 1 touchdown in 2 games is the bottom line, and that's a really good start to the season. Yeah.
Are you preserving Isaac's red shirt if you can?
That's part of the equation right now, absolutely. Yeah, and that plus getting a look at Bird, who we've never seen in live action. So the combination of not squandering games, at least right now, with Isaac, and needing to get a good look at Bird and see what he can do, led to the what you saw today with Bird getting all the reps when Devin exited the game.
How much does the pick six streak mean to you? You're at 22 now, 22 seasons in a row.
Well, I mean, it's good. I mean, that's all time, right? I mean, it's the all-time record. Yeah. So we credit to Coach Scally and Coach Pease before that, and Coach Satake before that. I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have had a hand in that, and it was great to see it today. Jackson Benny played that just right. And then almost had another one. We had John O'Hall intercept. I guess that would be I don't know if that'd be a fumble or an interception. What did it go down as? I guess an interception. But anyway, almost had another one. But yeah, it's something to be proud of. But we don't talk about it ever or think about it. It's just something that happens.
To follow up on that, the defensive secondary today, how would you assess kind of their play and your confidence moving forward? Pretty good. We like I said, we didn't cover all the routes as well as we should, and we turned some routes loose up the field that they didn't connect on, fortunately, and 1 or 2 they did connect on. So let's see, the throw game, 13 out of 25, so again about 50% completion rate, no touchdowns, couple picks. So we're doing some good things, but there'll be bigger tests along the way in that regard. And still a little bit unknown right now how sound we are back there, because we really haven't been tested yet.
What would you attribute some of that sluggishness in the first half on offense to?
First off, early on, that little thunder burst, it makes things a little more difficult. There's no excuses, but I don't think Devin was gripping the ball, as well as he could have when that 15 or 20 minute period, whatever it was. Good question. I mean, we just didn't get in that rhythm. We didn't come out as I'm not going to say we weren't ready, because we're ready to play, but we just didn't come out executing as well as we did last week. Sometimes that happens.
Kyle, you walked into this game saying you wanted to see more from Tobias Merriweather and all the other receivers. Now that they have 2 games under their belt, what is your, perception or take on how the wide receivers are coming along, and what else would you want to see from them?
Well, I think they're still a work in progress. RD Davis, he had a really nice game today. He caught, 7 balls, and Tobias had 6. And Smith Snowden, what he adds, he didn't add nearly as much this week as last week, but he only played a half of the game on offense. But the receiver position in and of itself is a work in progress. We've got about 4 guys right now, 5 guys that we really have trust in, and we're waiting for another guy or 2 to join that group.
Kyle, all 4 of your defensive ends recorded at least half a sack today. What does it mean to see those guys get going so early on in the season? Yeah, that's encouraging. And Logan Fano, our lead defensive end, wasn't out there today, so it was a great opportunity for Cash Dillon and Lance Holtzclaw and these other guys to get reps. And they get good pressure off the edge. And that's a group that we got 5 of them. We feel confident in all 5 of them, although only 4 played today.
Obviously a very small sample size, 2 games in, but Jason Beck's offense is averaging now just a touch over 500 yards per game. You're running report card not only on the production, but also how the offense looks.
Well, I think that it's really to my liking. I can tell you that the structure of it, the way Jason has put it together, his creativity, his play calling. We're so far, it's only 2 games, but exactly as we had hoped. I mean, that's when we hired Jason, a year ago or whenever it was, 8 months ago. We watched his tape extensively. We had a good feel for what what his scheme was and what his philosophies were, and he's brought those here and implemented them, and you're seeing a lot of the same results that he got last year.
Coach, kind of a similar question, just 2 games in, but do you feel like this team is kind of starting to develop their identity, and do you think they're moving in the right direction?
A little bit, but we still have stiffer tests coming up, like I said, and so we'll find out more about us as the weeks progress. But so far, we're off to a good start. I can tell you one thing, this team has a phenomenal work ethic and phenomenal leadership, and that's a good starting point to be able to be a good football team.
Nate Johnson was able to get some touches today.
Yeah.
His attitude coming back and accepting the role that he has, how has he reacclimated to the team?
Very well, and he's a team guy. He just wants to contribute, and we wanted to get a better look at him today because we didn't get much of a look at him last week. Thought he did some really good things. He's got a ton of ability. He's a 10, 200-meter guy. He's the fastest guy on the team as far as 100-meter guy. So he's got explosiveness. He's just been a quarterback all his life, so he's just trying to figure out how to be a position guy. And I think he's taking baby steps, but not there yet.
How would you evaluate Bird's performance in his first kind of extended run?
Just watching him from the sidelines, really good. We'll watch the tape and see how he did, detail-wise. But he's a kid that is got the right demeanor to play the position. Nothing bothers him. He's very cool and calm. He's also a terrific athlete. You saw some of the runs he made out there tonight, and he's a good decision maker. So he's got all the basics, and we just got to continue to see more of him. And he passed the test tonight, this afternoon. But there'll be bigger ones down the road.
Kyle, can you just speak on the importance of Jackson Benny on this defense?
Yeah, he's playing the nickel spot, which is the most difficult spot on the defense. It's the most demanding. It's the most to it as far as the learning curve. You got to cover. And you got to cover in the slot where you don't have the sideline to help you out and protect you, so it's a tougher coverage responsibility. You got to play in the run fits. You got to blitz off the edge on occasion. So that's the position that is really the most demanding. And what he's doing so far has been outstanding, especially when you consider that he's splitting time and playing wide receiver about 30 or 40% of the time. So he's been a huge surprise. He's probably the biggest surprise in a good way on the football team this fall so far. And we saw that in camp starting to emerge. Did you say thank you? You're welcome. You done? Okay. Thanks, guys.
There you go. There's Coach Whittingham after the big win over Cal Poly. 63-9 was the final score. A couple quick notes. Mentions that they are trying to preserve Isaac Wilson's redshirt year as long as they can. And it sounds like Coach Witt is pretty high on Bird Ficklin. I think he liked what he saw.
What is there not to like, He came in and, he basically seemed like a like-for-like replacement for Devin Dampier, which I think guys like that can find a whole lot of success in Jason Beck's offense. The way it's run, the way it's played, the way that he likes to scheme up plays to allow the quarterback to showcase not only his arm but his speed. This is having the similar skill set to Devin Dampier. I think this is a perfect offense for a guy like Bert Ficklin to show off that skill set. But Christian, I think Kyle Whittingham kind of tipped his hand to your theory, and it sounds like it is maybe a little bit correct, where they're trying to preserve as much as they possibly can for maybe when you get into Big 12 play and you have to, bring in Isaac Wilson for whatever reason, there might be a little bit more confidence and a little bit more, of a want to have those redshirt games in your back pocket for when you do get into Big 12 play.
And maybe the hope is you don't have to see him at all, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's nice to have a player that can go in and win some garbage time games like today, but once you get into conference play, maybe the hope is you can just have Dampier out there all 4 quarters, even if you are up by 50 points. That would be great, right? I'm sure Whittingham would love that. That would be an awesome problem for Whittingham to try and solve, although the redshirt years are pretty tricky to try and navigate. So we'll see how they do that over the course of this season. We got to take a break. Coming up next on the other side, we are going to hear from some of the players. Jackson Benny, I know, spoke. So we'll get to the player audio next. We got to take a break for the radio. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. It is the Ute Postgame Show brought to you by KSL Sports Zone.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ute Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza Alex Napoles with me. Thank you for joining us after this big 63-9 win over Cal Poly. It was an amazing game for the Utes. A lot of players showed up and had some really good games. Let's go ahead and get back to the podium. We had a lot of players take the podium. We had Wayshawn Parker, Devin Dampier, and Jackson Benny, as well as John Hall. 4 players at the podium. So let's get to that, Alex.
It was super fun, not going to lie. Just kind of in the right spot at the right time. When he threw it, I was kind of in disbelief, but right as I caught it, I just didn't look back, just decided to run as fast as I could. But it was, I'm just glad that the opportunities I'm getting out here, it's really fun to play with my boys.
Are you aware of the streak that keeps going to consecutive years touchdowns?
Yeah, I think that's 22, right? Yeah, 22.
This is kind of a follow-up for you, Jackson. Obviously, the coaches have been raving about you all throughout fall camp. Just when did you start feeling like you were turning the corner just in your play on defense and all that?
I'd say probably in the spring when they moved me to nickel. I've kind of bounced around from nickel to safety, but in the spring I played a lot of nickel, and that's when I got a little bit more comfortable there, and definitely a lot of things to work on for sure. But I'd say that's when things started to click for me. Yeah.
Pretty cool to see a lot of new faces down there singing the fight song. Devin, what's the whole first Ride Cycles experience and just being here? What's it been like? What's this ride been like?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Just starting out from our team, especially with a lot of new guys. We took it very personal to come in here and let's be Utes. Obviously, we have different cultures coming in, but, at the end of the day, we're all Utes at the end of the day. So as a team, that was awesome. And just being in the stadium, it was as electric as, everyone talked about it. Those 4th downs, I know our defense heard it. They got loud for them. Our touchdowns, I very much heard those as well. So it was awesome.
Wayshawn, I wanted to ask you the same question. Pullman, Washington's a lot different than Salt Lake City.
Yeah, it's of course a lot different. I mean, there's a lot more fans, but also at the same time, coming to the edge after we won a big game, just feels great as a team, like sitting there, saying an anthem, just like juice. And when we get to the locker room, it just adds a lot.
For Devin, you've been in this offense for a number of years. You're pretty comfortable in it, showing. How well do you think the rest of your teammates, the Utes that haven't been in this offense for a long time, how do you think they're acclimating?
Yeah, I think they're buying in very well. When I came in here, I asked them, kind of every day after practice, just what do you like about the offense? What do you want to change? Just making sure everybody feels like the offense fits them also, not just me. So I think we've came a long way. I think people are starting to thrive and starting to figure out what they're good at in our offense. So we're going to keep leading that way, and, I only see us going up.
For Wayshawn, that first drive of the game to get that pass, and were you surprised there was nobody around you? And to score 2 long touchdowns on the day, how juiced did that get the team?
Oh, it got the team really juiced. Like, coming to the sideline, seeing everybody come to the edge is like brings me like joy. Seeing everybody happy, like I know I scored, but it felt like the whole team scored on that. So when I got that first touchdown in the Rice Stadium, it felt real nice, like for real. Looking at the crowd, it's real nice.
And then for Jonathan, that interception, can you just take us through? Did you know you had the ball? I mean, you were probably just trying to knock it down, and it ended up in your hands.
Well, Coach Scally called a great call, man. And then I seen the boot. I kind of went up a little bit too high, but the ball hit my hand, and I just kind of made a play. And it was exciting to celebrate with the guys, man. It's an amazing feeling.
Jonathan, just to follow up on that, you had the interception, but what was the mindset, to finish the first half and then come out in the second half to have those 3 and outs like you guys did?
The mindset all this week was play this game like we'll play any other game. This opponent that's in front of us, and we got to prepare the right way. So,
Devin, what do you think of Bird's performance, after he came in?
Yeah, I thought Bird was electric. We've all seen him, especially spring ball and fall camp. He showcased that, he can get on that field and ball, and I'm just happy, he was able to showcase that to the world. And obviously behind me, we got 2 great quarterbacks, ready to go in there and ball at any time.
Jonathan, every single defensive end that played tonight logged at least half a sack. How does it make your job easier knowing that those guys are getting to the quarterback and are getting that pressure?
makes my job so easy, man. All our D linemen, they bring the juice every practice, and they're very electric, and they make plays out there, and we feed off them. So we love them guys.
Devin, it wasn't as crisp on offense today with a few penalties, different things that way. How would you kind of grade your team today versus maybe last week, and where are you guys at as a team?
Yeah, I thought we were there just physically. I thought no one was low on effort. Obviously, the mental issues, we just got to clean up, obviously. That's going to happen with every game. And just to have those early to learn from and, go into the next week a little bit tighter.
Wayshawn, you and Nakari have kind of a 1-2 punch going on. Reminds me a little bit of Gibbs and Montgomery for the Lions. Obviously, they're Sonic and Knuckles. Do you guys have a name that you call yourselves yet, or do we need to make one?
Nah, we got to come up with one for sure. Like, we got to ask the team. But right now, we don't got none, but that 1-2 punch is going to keep going on.
Jackson, to only give up one total touchdown in the first 2 games, what does it say about the potential of this defense as you get ready for a conference season coming up in a couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I've got total faith in our defense. Every position is really deep, and if someone goes down, we got more than enough confidence in the next man up, and we've trained hard to get where we are, and we're just excited to see where the season takes us.
There you go. That is the players. You had Jonnu Hall, Devin Dampier, Jackson Benny, and Wayshawn Parker after the Utah Utes 63-9 win over Cal Poly. Alex, do you have any takeaways?
I think the takeaway for me, of course, we talked about a little bit, was Utah's slow and sloppy start. Good to see, again, kind of the similar to what we were talking about. Devin Dampier kind of takes the same approach to it. This is a great opportunity to learn from it, to grow from it, and to get better from it. And so I think that's exactly what you want to hear from your quarterback after a slow start from the after a sluggish start from the offense with the penalties, with a couple of miscues, and Devin Dampier's come in, and you can just tell and you can just feel through his interviews how much of a leader he is for this team. And so for your main guy to be out there in front of media saying that, I think it bodes well for Utah.
Quickly, and I'm sorry to ambush you with this, but we need an offensive and a defensive player of the game for the Utes.
Oh, defensive, Jackson Benny, easy.
Pick 6, 3 pass breakups. Not a hard decision there.
No, that's probably the easiest decision I've had to make all day. Offensively, I want to say Devin Dampier because that's probably the easy answer with the 192 and the 3 touchdowns. But you know what? I'm gonna go Nakari Rogers, right? 7 carries, 31 yards. Not the most yardage, not the greatest yards, but had 2 huge touchdowns for Utah in this one. I'll go Rogers for my offensive player.
What I liked about Rogers and his touchdowns is they're situational, right? Like those we talked about earlier, how big it was for Utah to score when they did after the Jonnu Hall interception and being set up at the 1 yard line. And it felt like that was the score punched in by Rogers, where it felt like, okay, yeah, the Utes can take a sigh of relief. They're going to win this game. They're going to do it comfortably. And I think those are both great picks. Having multiple touchdowns in a game for Rogers, and he's off to a great start this year. And I didn't, realize that him and Parker were going to be, splitting carries as evenly as they are, but it's a good thing. I thought Parker was going to get a majority of the carries, but we heard 1A, 1B throughout camp, and it's been pretty clear throughout the first 2 weeks that that's what we've got, and it's entertaining.
It's entertaining, and like we talked about earlier too, right? It's not just those 2 guys who are carrying the load. You have the ability to sprinkle in Smith Snowden. You have the ability to sprinkle in Hunter Andrews. Now in this game, Nate Johnson, and I think that's just going to continue to lead to Utah having success on offenses and running the ball this season. Getting multiple guys who are incredibly athletic. Some of these guys have incredible speed, and getting all these guys involved in the rushing game. I think it's going to be hard for defenses to try to scheme up ways to stop this. It's already going to be hard enough to stop Wayshawn Parker and Rogers enough as it is. Then you add on those guys on top of it. Utah's run game this season is going to be super fun to watch.
Yeah. That's going to do it for us tonight. As we wrap this up, join us next week. Again, as always, we're going to be breaking down Ute post game immediately following the game. Next week for Utah, they're going to head up to Laramie for a fun matchup against Wyoming. Could be a fun and entertaining game. So any quick thoughts there?
It's a trip to Laramie is never fun. At least it's not in November.
Get it out of the way now.
Get it out of the way now. Get it. Another opportunity for Utah to go out and just kind of continue to showcase this offense and like we've been talking about, just build off of and clean up some of the mistakes that you made in this game. Maybe don't, like I said, it felt like there was a little bit of a vibe of maybe coming out of this one, they weren't taking this game as seriously as maybe the UCLA game. So maybe overcome that a little bit, right? Laramie is going to be a tough, it'll be a tough trip. And so I want Utah to go out there, start early, start fast, and not have to worry about starting off sluggish or we're having to worry about many penalties putting you behind.
Yeah, nobody likes to go up and play up there, but Utah is clearly on a roll through the first 2 weeks. And I believe, and I'm sure you believe as well, that is going to continue next week against Wyoming. So join us next week as we break down that game. Again, I'm Christian Esparza for Alex Napoles and our producer Alma Bean, doing a great job getting us the sound, getting all that edited, and helping us on the radio side. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week. This is the Ute Postgame Show brought to you by KSL Sports.